Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of everyone at SMMT, welcome to the 2017 International Summit. Delighted to have so many of you here at what is clearly a very critical time for the industry. I'd particularly like to take this opportunity to thank all our speakers for joining us today, sharing their time and expertise, and the companies supporting the event, Auto Trader, Synchron, Squire Patton Boggs. I hope you all enjoy the day, and indeed I hope it is punchy. So our industry has rarely been stronger, but the challenges we face are even greater. Brexit negotiations have started and will dominate political and news agendas for months, if not years, to come. They will focus minds in cabinet rooms and boardrooms throughout this land and beyond. Now, whatever deal is finally delivered, it will represent perhaps our greatest challenge, something I want to reflect upon today. As an industry, we can take heart from our achievements. We have shown and continue to show the ability to rise to the greatest of challenges, not just overcoming them, but flourishing. 2016 was another successful year for the industry, and today we published the 2017 Sustainability Report. It shows just how successful we have been balancing economic growth with social and environmental improvements. Let me give you a few examples. Record car and van sales in 2016, record production volumes with manufacturing turnover up 9% to 77.5 billion. And our economic contribution to the UK stands at 21.5 billion, with record levels of export, research and development up 10%, and productivity, so often the Achilles heel of UK business, at an all-time high, with each worker making on average 11.8 vehicles and generating more than £130,000 per person in added value. Now, we've done that while rising to the environmental challenges that could have stalled that progress, continuing to cut CO2 emissions, to use less energy, less water, cutting waste in our manufacturing processes, and investing in renewable energy, so much so that the sector now generates enough energy to power over 14,000 homes. I could go on. We're making great progress, but the greatest threat to that progress is Brexit. As the UK's automotive industry's collective voice, we welcomed the government's reassuring words about our proposed exit from the EU, about our sector's importance to the economy, their determination to maintain our competitiveness and to deliver the best deal to secure our future. We waited patiently to hear how the government would square the circle, leaving the single market and the customs union whilst maintaining that competitiveness. And so we've asked for clarity and certainty. However, the events of the past few weeks and the general election has not brought that clarity. It has, moreover, added to confusion. So it's time to stop playing with words. Phrases like soft Brexit, hard Brexit, open, closed, they mean nothing to business. Certainly, business needs more clarity. So let us, as an industry, try and seek some of that clarity. It's time to be brutally honest with ourselves. Our sector needs a comprehensive and bespoke UK-EU trade agreement, one that would ensure the benefits we currently enjoy. We do not believe such an agreement can be delivered in 2 years' time, yet that is the deadline that's dictated by the Article 50 process. It will not be met. It is more likely to be at least 5 years. This uncertainty, however, cannot be allowed to drag on and drag down British business with it. Nor will be satisfied with vague talk of a transition or an implementation period, whatever that might mean. Instead, we need a clear interim arrangement, an arrangement enabling business as usual from day one. We need the government publicly to seek that interim arrangement whereby the UK remains in the customs union and ideally in the single market. And this needs to be in place for the duration of the negotiations and for however long it takes to implement a final agreement on that new relationship with the EU. There must be no cliff edge. To leave in 29 without a deal would put the industry in peril. Defaulting to WTO tariffs and customs barriers would damage our industry permanently disrupting supply chains and jeopardizing competitiveness. WTO rules mean a 10% on finished vehicles and on average a 4.5% tariff on components. The cost of our production would increase more than that of our competitors. British competitiveness would therefore be undermined. The cost of cars for British consumers could increase. SMMT analysis suggests that we would face a £4.5 billion tariff bill for cars alone, which would add at least £2.7 billion a year to imports and £1.8 billion to exports. Import tariffs would push the list price of cars imported to the UK from the EU by an average of £1,500 per vehicle if brands and dealers can't absorb these costs. It could also result in the significant introduction of non-tariff barriers, the loss of passporting rights for financial services, including automotive finance, and the prospect of having to certify exports as being compliant with EU rules, increasing red tape and costs. So the cliff edge must be avoided, and interim agreements agreed in place from day one. Business needs the certainty. I'm trying to get water. But let me be clear. We accept that we are leaving the European Union, and we share the desire for that departure to be a success. For it to be an economic success, we must remain as many of the benefits that we currently enjoy, being within the single market and the customs union. Thank you. Now, I've mentioned the importance of tariff-free trade. We need the free flow of automotive goods to avoid costs, maintain competitiveness, and support just-in-time manufacturing. The intention may be to leave the club, but we will still be playing the same game, and we need to ensure we are playing off the same rulebook. We need to know how the Great Repeal Bill will accommodate current regulation. Crucially, we need to know how the UK will be able to influence future EU regulation, the regulation that governs our biggest export market, remember. We need to be assured that there is as little chance as possible of regulatory divergence. To do otherwise could lead to trade barriers or, in extremis, anti-dumping measures. And on a very practical level, we need to retain the ability to type-approve vehicles here in the UK for the European market. This is critical to the effective operation of automotive R&D in the UK. We also need to know if we can retain the rights we now have through existing EU free trade agreements, such as those with South Korea and Canada. Similarly, we'll need to have access to future deals like the one currently being negotiated with Japan. Now, I agree that's a long list, but it reflects the complexity of our relationship with the EU and of our business. To seek anything less would be to weaken our position, our competitiveness, and our attractiveness as an inward investment destination. The challenge is not just to vehicle assembly, but to the supply chain as well. Now, currently, UK automobile manufacturers purchase only 44% of their componentry from UK suppliers. The actual UK-derived content of those parts is probably far less, given the integrated nature of the European supply chain. But that 44% is an increase on previous years, one that should be celebrated and indeed encouraged to continue. We want more of the supply chain to be based here in the UK. It will make the UK a more attractive destination for inward investment, reduce the risk of delays and boost jobs. Furthermore, if the UK industry is to take advantage of beneficial trading terms, for example zero tariffs, we will have to meet minimum rules of origin. Boosting the amount of originating content produced in the UK will help. However, most trade deals require 50 to 60% originating content threshold. And that is a considerable increase from where we currently are, and not one that could be delivered in anything less than a decade. It is essential, therefore, that content produced in the UK continues to count as European content and vice versa for the purposes of future trade deals. Now, adopting this principle would achieve the clarity and certainty we as an industry need now. But it's just one example of the complex nature of trade negotiations and the importance of getting each and every deal right. It's why trade deals take so long. But our interrelationship with European counterparts is not just about process, supply chains and trade. It's about people. Our industry needs to maintain freedom of movement of talent. We are all committed to nurturing talent and developing our skilled workforce here at home. Our investment in training, outreach programs, promoting STEM subjects in schools is a long-standing commitment and one that we can be justly proud of. 814,000 people are employed across the industry, 169,000 of them in manufacturing. We can be proud of that and the government grateful, but we must also be realistic. UK automotive companies in all shapes and sizes employ significant numbers of non-UK EU workers. We estimate that on average 1 in 10 workers in our industry is a non-UK EU national. In some companies, half of their employees may be from abroad. The industry can employ more. There are currently about 5,000 vacancies unfilled, vacancies that are critical to the industry. Leaving them unfilled is having a significant impact on business. By 2020, in just 3 years' time, we may need another 50,000 workers just to meet current expectations of growth. It is why some describe Europe as having a skills problem, but the UK a skills crisis. In the future, recruitment needs to be done at least as quickly and easily as it is at present, or at a stroke, we will have handed a competitive advantage to the 27 EU countries that remain. That the government needs to work with us so our industry is able to attract the brightest and the best from around the world. And similarly, we want to continue to benefit from the experience British workers gained from working abroad during their careers. Now is not the time to restrict the UK automotive industry's freedom to employ. If the pool of British talent is not deep enough, we must not be further restricted by turning off the tap of foreign expertise. So, as the negotiations start, we need the government to provide as much certainty as possible. We need an assurance that we will avoid any risk of the UK leaving the EU without having established new trading terms with the EU. No deal is simply not an option. The clock is ticking. We have 2 years from the triggering of Article 50. A new relationship with the EU can be agreed, but there are issues we need to address that are complex. Tariff, non-tariff, regulation, labour issues all need to be resolved. And doing this effectively would likely make a future deal between the UK and the EU the most comprehensive and complex in history. So quite simply, this will not happen by March 2019. It is essential that the government agrees an interim arrangement with the EU, staying within the customs union and, ideally, the single market, until a trade deal can be agreed and ratified, however long that may take. Only through such an agreement will British and international businesses have the certainty they need to invest in the UK. Remember, investment decisions are being taken today. They are being taken with the risks of Brexit in mind. It is essential that the government does everything it can to provide reassurance to the whole sector and remove that uncertainty now. In the longer term, the government must ensure that the UK's new trading terms with the EU and indeed the rest of the world are at the very least as good as those that we currently enjoy. If not, why would we sign up to them? We will work with the government every step of the way throughout the negotiations to try, but a new trading relationship with the EU, the right one, and also the importance that we must have to establish new global opportunities if that path is proven viable. The right deal in Brexit could be an opportunity. The bad deal could be greater than any threat or challenge we have faced in modern times. Ladies and gentlemen, the UK automotive industry is vital to this country. It is something of which Britain can truly be proud. All we ask of government as they start the Brexit negotiations is to do us proud. Thank you very much indeed.